The map of the Ukraine conflict continues to shift, not through diplomacy, but force. As fighting grinds deeper into its third year, Russia's defense ministry says its troops are pressing forward across multiple fronts, striking command nodes, expanding bridgeheads, and claiming fresh territorial gains. Russia's defense ministry says its forces have struck a Ukrainian battalion command post in the Chernihiv region, targeting what it describes as a key operational hub used to launch drone and artillery attacks on Russian border territories. According to security sources cited by RIA Novosti, the command post belonged to the 433rd Separate Unmanned Aerial Systems Battalion of the Ukrainian Armed Forces. The unit, Moscow claims, was involved in strikes on civilian targets in Russia's Kursk and Bryansk regions. The strike reportedly hit the command post near Zhernovka, disrupting coordination and control of Ukrainian drone operations in the area. Russian officials say Ukrainian forces continue to shell border regions on a regular basis, with drones intercepted by air defense systems and incoming fire repelled. In response, the Russian Defense Ministry reiterates that its forces are carrying out precision strikes using air, sea, and land-based weapons, as well as unmanned systems, aimed exclusively, it says, at military facilities in Ukraine's defense industrial infrastructure. Moscow insists civilian targets are not part of its operational planning, framing the latest strikes as retaliatory and defensive in nature. On the southern axis, Russia's Vostok group of forces reports fresh territorial gains. Russian army said the unit liberated Gerasimovka in Ukraine's Dnepropetrovsk region, expanding a bridgehead along the west bank of the Kyiv River. According to the Russian Defense Ministry, troops advanced up to 2 kilometers along the front line and pushed nearly a kilometer deep into Ukrainian defenses, clearing multiple strongpoints in close-quarters combat. Russian military briefings say the fighting around Gerasimovka resulted in the destruction of 2 armored fighting vehicles, 12 Baba Yaga hexacopter drones, and significant Ukrainian manpower losses. Additional fire strikes were reported against Ukrainian mechanized, assault, and territorial defense units near Andriivka, Gavrilovka, Ternovatoye, Gulyai Pol, and Kosovtsevo, spanning both Dnepropetrovsk and Zaporozhye regions. The Defense Ministry also reports that a D-30 howitzer crew from the Yug group of forces destroyed a Ukrainian UAV command post in the Konstantinovka direction. Further north, Russia's Defense Ministry claims another settlement has fallen. According to the MOD, Battle Group West units liberated Novoplatonovka in the Kharkiv region over the past 24 hours, following what it describes as active and coordinated offensive operations. Moscow says advances in the Donbass and adjacent regions have accelerated in recent months, with one settlement after another coming under Russian control. All of this unfolds against a backdrop of stalled diplomacy. Kremlin says any pause in fighting must come through a binding peace agreement, rejecting temporary ceasefires. Ukraine, meanwhile, has pushed for limited truces, including calls for a Christmas ceasefire, while President Volodymyr Zelensky has shown no public willingness to concede territory. With both sides entrenched, the conflict shows little sign of slowing. If Russian battlefield claims hold, they underscore the brutal intensity of a war that continues to redraw lines on the ground, even as negotiations remain frozen.
The drums of war are pounding louder. Russia surges deeper into eastern Ukraine, and with every mile gained, the promise of peace slips further into the shadows. On the Kharkiv front, Moscow claims it has seized Novoplatonovka, boasting of devastating losses inflicted on Ukrainian forces. Now, the spotlight burns on Borovaya, a strategic prize whose fall could rip open the Kharkiv region and unleash the next, deadlier phase of Russia's advance. The map of war-torn Ukraine is shrinking day by day as fighting intensifies and diplomacy stalls. The Russian Defense Ministry said that its troops liberated the community of Novoplatonovka in Kharkiv over the past 24 hours in the special military operation in Ukraine. The Russian MOD said Battle Group West units liberated the settlement of Novoplatonovka in the Kharkiv region through active operations. In recent months, the Russian armed forces have been advancing at an increasing pace in the Donbass region and beyond, liberating one settlement after another. The liberation of Novoplatonovka is part of the Russian military's broader push to capture the key strongholds of Ukraine. Novoplatonovka is not just another village, it is a gateway. Just 3 kilometers away lies Borovaya. Control over Borovaya, along with the nearby settlement of Podliman, would give Russian troops access to an additional crossing to the right bank of the Oskol River. This would strengthen their defensive posture and help secure the southern axis near Kupiansk. At the same time, holding Borovaya creates favorable conditions for advancing toward Izium, a key logistics hub in the southeastern Kharkiv region. Military analysts have repeatedly stressed that without taking Izium and pushing deeper into the territory, any attempt to storm the Drushkovka, Slavyansk, Kramatorsk agglomeration would face serious obstacles. For this reason, experts believe Russian forces are pursuing a phased strategy aimed at isolating and clearing this stretch of the front. Meanwhile, intense fighting continues in the Kupiansk area. The overall position of Ukrainian forces in this sector is becoming increasingly difficult. At the same time, Russian forces are expanding their offensive in the northern Kharkiv region. Strikes in the directions of Stary Saltov, Pechenigabo, and Chugiev are intensifying, adding pressure across a widening front. Moscow now claims devastating battlefield gains across nearly every major sector. According to Russia's defense ministry, more than 1,520 Ukrainian soldiers were killed over the past 24 hours, with heavy fighting reported across 6 battle groups. In the north, Russia's Battle Group North claims to have killed over 250 Ukrainian troops, destroying a Grad multiple rocket launcher, artillery systems, radar equipment, and electronic warfare stations. Moscow says fighting raged near the Sumy and Kharkiv regions as Russian units struck mechanized, territorial defense, and National Guard brigades. On the western axis, Russia's Battle Group West reports more than 220 Ukrainian casualties, along with the destruction of 4 armored combat vehicles and multiple artillery guns. Further south, Russian forces say they tightened their grip near Slavyansk, Kramatorsk, and Konstantinovka, claiming 200 Ukrainian troops killed and multiple armored vehicles destroyed. In Donetsk, Moscow claims its battle group's center cleared 120 buildings in the city of Dmitrov, pushing Ukrainian units out of residential areas and repelling counterattacks. Russia says this sector alone saw more than 505 Ukrainian casualties, including the destruction of US-made armored vehicles, rocket launchers, and Western artillery systems. On the Eastern Front, Russia's Battle Group East claims to have killed more than 295 Ukrainian troops, destroying 2 tanks, armored vehicles, and field artillery as they advanced deeper into Ukrainian defenses. Along the Dnipro axis, Moscow reports 50 more Ukrainian troops killed, with 6 artillery guns and electronic warfare stations taken out. Russia also claims a surge in aerial warfare. Moscow says its air defenses shot down 180 Ukrainian drones in just 24 hours, while Russian strikes hit UAV assembly workshops, troop deployment sites, and logistics infrastructure across 154 locations. These claims come amid no visible breakthrough in peace talks and as President Zelensky shows no sign of conceding territory. Ukraine has not independently confirmed the Russian figures. But if accurate, the scale of losses underscores the brutal intensity of a war now grinding deeper into its 3rd year with no clear end in sight. All this comes as peace remains elusive. The Kremlin says any pause in fighting must come through a binding peace agreement, not a temporary ceasefire, as Ukraine pushes for a Christmas truce. President Zelensky has shown no public sign of conceding territory. With both sides entrenched, the battle for eastern Ukraine is far from over.